When I was younger, I was obsessed with Sonic the Hedgehog. For as long as I can remember, the blue blur was a constant presence in my life. I grew up playing games like Sonic and Knuckles and Sonic and the Secret Rings. This was my 7th birthday cake. I made Sonic fan food. My experience with the series was a little different than most. Many people fell in love with the series after playing games like Sonic 2 or Sonic 3, Sonic Adventure. In hindsight, the best Sonic game I played before the age of 11 was Sonic and Knuckles. Secret Rings is not a very good game, but I still remember enjoying it. The ending cutscene is still the most metal thing to come out of the series since Shadow the Hedgehog. So it wasn't until 6th grade that I was finally introduced to what is, debatably, the best Sonic game out there. This game is beautiful, exciting, and heaps of fun. Yet, as with all things, it too has a dark side. The game is very, very flawed. My goal in this video is to explain to you exactly why and how this game remains one of my favorites of all time, whilst also providing a more critical and thoughtful approach. I was 11 when I first played this game. That may sound irrelevant to the topic itself, but trust me, I am very grateful I was so young at the time, because I was ecstatic to get my hands on it. Ascending to young adulthood comes with its fair share of disappointment, and for me, that has been my increasingly jaded experience with the video game industry. I don't believe video games have gotten worse, far from it, but I certainly believe that my pure enamorment with the medium has slowly faded the further I've progressed beyond my youth. I've seen more, and I've experienced more, so naturally, I'm a lot harder to impress than I was. But this game, it has a magically nostalgic effect on me. Sonic Adventure 2 was released during a pretty hard time for SEGA. The Dreamcast was failing, the company was on the verge of going third party. Sonic Adventure's development team was comprised of over 60 people, with some sources citing that over 100 developers had contributed in some way by the end. You wanna know how many main developers Sonic Adventure 2 had? 11. This had to have been a frightening time for Sonic fans. SA2 could have easily ended up being the last Sonic game ever. And if it truly was meant to be the swan song of the Dreamcast, it achieved that goal. Not only by reaching the bar, but by exceeding expectations and raising the bar. In my mind, it still remains to this day the most replayable, content-filled, passion-infused product SEGA has ever created under the Sonic brand. No, you may be confused, and for good reason. Isn't this that cheesy, broken mess of a game? And to that I say,
Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! Shut up!
And also, yes, absolutely, this game is hilariously and embarrassingly experimental, and I will certainly be elaborating on that front throughout the video. I may be a Sonic shill, but I also have a minimum of 4 brain cells, only because Sonic stole the rest. Sonic is now a convicted felon. Well, not actually convicted, but he is certainly accused. The game gives us a magnificent first impression of Sonic's character, as he escapes a government helicopter by, quote, taking out everyone aboard. After ripping a metal plate off the helicopter's wing, Sonic dives to the city below and begins snowboarding down Main Street as the global task force hunts him down. You can literally hear their comms at the beginning of the stage. Boarding through San Francisco whilst causing irreparable property damage is just so stinking fun. The controls are tight. One mistake and you lose all your momentum. You can perform tricks by pressing A after hitting a ramp. These tricks result in various degrees of success depending on how fast you were traveling at the time, but they always feel satisfying to pull off. Soon enough, you'll reach the end of the road and lose access to your DIY snowboard. But the fun is not over yet. From this point forward, you're gonna be running, jumping, spin dashing, and most interestingly, rail grinding. You may have noticed earlier that Sonic shoes don't look particularly normal, and that's because they're not. These are Soap shoes. Soap, a company that manufactured shoes specifically designed for rail grinding, landed a brand deal with Sonic, which is so appropriate for the game that introduced the grinding mechanic. By the time you've nearly completed the stage, the developers decide to throw a flaming curveball your way by revealing that there's a giant government semi-truck right behind you and you need to go. Run, fleet, now, please. Big? Run! Luckily, the truck is not strong enough to break through architecturally awkward buildings. So you manage to escape and make it to the goal ring. This is the best stage in the entire game. Now, don't get me wrong, the other stages are great, but I'd be lying if I said this wasn't when gameplay absolutely peaked. It's one of my favorite opening levels in any video game, and one of the most important elements is the one I've entirely failed to mention up until this point: escape from the city. This was back when Sonic wasn't afraid to throw completely original vocal tracks into its levels, and Escape from the City is the prime example of cheesy late 90s bliss. This game's soundtrack is absolutely peak, and I truly suggest giving it a listen. Also, thank you so much, SEGA, for adding in a sound test. It makes gathering background music for this video so much easier. Right after escaping the truck, Sonic comes across the game's debut character, Shadow.
It all starts with this. A jewel containing the ultimate power.
That's the Chaos Emerald! Now I know what's going on. The military has mistaken me for the likes of you. So, where do you think you're going with that emerald? Say something, you fake hedgehog!
Chaos Control!
He's fast! Hey, it's not his speed. He must be using the Chaos Emerald to warp.
Shadow. I'm the world's ultimate life form. There's no time for games. Farewell.
This is the first example of a classic, genuine Sonic Adventure 2 cutscene. The corny dialogue, the awful sound mixing, the hilariously outdated animation. It all comes together to create one of the most poorly executed scenes in gaming, and I absolutely love it. It is awful, but it's not lazy. They had a vision. There's so much charm to be found in its subpar quality. It manages to tread the line between genuinely abysmal and actually interesting. If there's one word to describe SA2's philosophy, it's ambition. Regardless of whether or not they succeeded in their attempt to make a serious and engaging story, the fact that they tried is so admirably apparent. The fact that so many fans from around the world see this cutscene and remember how awesome it was communicates to me that SEGA succeeded. They succeeded at creating a narrative that captured the minds of children and made them care. Oh yeah, and then Sonic gets arrested. Knock knock, it's Knuckles! You thought you'd only be playing as Sonic? Fools! That's right, baby, there are 3 different playable characters, all with their own individual character arcs that intertwine with each other. Sonic, who's on the run from the military and attempting to prove his own innocence. Tails, who wants to assist Sonic and continue fostering his own independence. And Knuckles, who once again needs to regain the scattered pieces of the Master Emerald, before Rouge, a professional treasure hunter, gets to them first. Why was the Master Emerald shattered again, you may ask? Because he punched it, Eggman once again decided to snatch the emerald for himself. And as a last resort, Knuckles had to break it into multiple pieces so it wouldn't get stolen. Listen, I love this game, but Knuckles, if you had the power to shatter one of the most powerful relics in the world, why not just punch Eggman instead? Anyway, this is the first time we're introduced to the second out of 3 playstyles, treasure hunting. It is, for all intents and purposes, a big ol' game of hot and cold. The closer you are to an emerald shard, the louder your radar will beep. Lore-wise, this is explained as an innate sense Knuckles has, but I'm partial to the way Patter always described it. The Soyabbit, or shut up you annoying beeping thing. Side note, Peter Netter's content was a massive inspiration for me growing up, so please check out his video on the game. Now, the concept is solid. Sonic Adventure 1 had this exact same playstyle for Knuckles, and I personally really liked it. But there is a problem. For one reason or another, the developers decided that you could only detect 1 emerald at a time. Once you found that emerald, only then could you begin to detect the others. And you know, this is stupid. Back in Adventure 1, you still had to find 3 shards, but you could detect any of them at any time, no matter what order they appeared in. SA2's baffling decision to effectively pad out playtime by inhibiting you from seeking more than 1 emerald at once is just strange. Maybe people got overwhelmed by hearing so much beeping at once, or feeling like they didn't know which emerald to hunt for first? Both of these issues seem pretty easy to remedy without artificially spreading your gameplay thin. Regardless of SEGA's admittedly goofy alteration to hunting, Knuckles' first stage, Wild Canyon, similar to City Escape, is where I believe the treasure hunting stage is peaked. It's just big enough to provide challenge, yet isn't laughably small. It strikes a very reasonable balance in regards to difficulty. And who could forget, all of Knuckles' stages are accompanied by original rap. Each track is catered to each stage.
This is Knuckles, and I'm back. I've been away for a while, but I'm back to kick some butt in Wild Canyon. I shall find all the lost pieces of the Master Emerald here. I'm gonna get those fools. They wanna play with my emeralds? They playing with the wrong guy. Eka don't know. That's what I'm representing. Never seen a mic hog spit like a menace.
and essentially describes Knuckles' thought process throughout the entire game, which is a really cool and subtle way to express the thoughts of an otherwise stoic and serious character. Seriously, I love hip-hop Knuckles. Please bring him back, SEGA. So right after collecting all 3 shards and beating the level, we get to play as Tails. Kind of. You see, in the original Sonic Adventure, you could play as a robot character named Gamma, who had a third-person shooter playstyle. SA1 actually had 6 different unique gameplay styles. SA2 decided to trim the trim the fat, and only include the most consistently fun playstyles: running, hunting, and shooting. Now, spoiler alert for Sonic Adventure, seriously, skip like 7 seconds ahead in the video if you care enough. Since Gamma died at the end of his story, they couldn't really bring him back for the second game. So, what was their solution? Slap Tails in a high-tech mech suit, that's what. Tails' gameplay is very combo-focused. The higher the lock-on chain you create, the more points you get. It's a fun enough system. Chaining together as many shots as you can is addicting. Along with the... I'm gonna be honest, I'm somewhat at a loss here. I enjoy the mech shooting, I really do, but there's just not that much to say about it. It's fun, if not a little clunky. The controls feel kinda rough when attempting to swivel your vehicle around, and chaos forbid you attempt to A-rank any of the mech stages. They can become a little tedious, but overall, they're alright. They get a pass from me. Story-wise, Tails is currently attempting to break Sonic out of prison, despite not actually knowing for sure whether or not his charges are legitimate, which is questionable, but I mean, hey, it's not like anyone's gonna stop him. Before entering Prison Lane, he single-handedly defeated Eggman in a gunfight whilst protecting Amy. Oh, yeah, Amy's here too. While unfortunately no longer playable like last time, she does serve a vital role in the game's story. You can certainly tell they took a little more "ew, girls are lame" influence than last time, assumedly to appeal to the 7 to 12-year-old boy demographic. Like, seriously, Amy does nearly nothing wrong in this entire game, and every character is just like, man, Amy is so annoying, let's just ditch her and do our own thing. Anyway, after breaking through the military defenses, Tails and Amy find their way to Sonic's prison cell. After some bickering and a suggested arranged marriage, Amy swipes the keycard and releases Sonic. Now remember to note the strange, borderline insane equations on the wall. This will be important for later. Now from this point forward, we get to play 2 Sonic stages in a row: Metal Harbor and Green Forest. Sounds cool, right? Wrong. Well, no, it is cool, but here's the point. Unfortunately, we don't exactly get the most equal level yield. You see, Sonic gets 6 stages, Knuckles gets 5, and Tails gets 4. This means it's impossible to maintain a consistent order. In a perfect world, everyone has the same number of stages. Sonic, Knuckles, Tails, repeat. I'm not exactly complaining. Sonic easily has the most consistently enjoyable stages, but it is a little strange. I'm not exactly sure if this was a conscious decision or a result of time constraints. Regardless, Metal Harbor is probably my second favorite stage in the game. It has this beautiful oceanside setting with, obviously, an absolutely amazing background track. You get to ride a rocket ship nearly outside of the atmosphere and back down to Earth, and you get some really cool light-up shoes. The light shoes are the first upgrade you come across in the game, allowing you to light-speed dash through trails of rings. I personally quite enjoy the upgrade system. Sure, your character looks like a transformer by the end of the game, but I think it's silly and fun. After beating the stage, we're allowed to bear witness to one of the most infamous scenes in the whole series.
So far, so good. Hey, that's...
That blue hedgehog again, of all places.
I found you, Faker.
Faker? I think you're the fake hedgehog around here. You're comparing yourself to me? Huh. You're not even good enough to be
I'll
my
make you eat those words.
The line reads, the way Sonic literally interrupts Shadow halfway through his sentence, it makes me happy. This encounter leads to a very mechanically in-depth boss fight.
I see. So you're not just a hedgehog. Darn. Not bad for an imposter.
Do you know who I am?
Oh my, Sonic, calm down, I think he's dead. We get another goofy cutscene in which Shadow literally just stops right there. This may be a result of the PC port adding widescreen, but yeah, they just stopped animating him here. Green Forest, awesome stage, love it to death. Listen to this. one of my favorite level tracks in the entire series. Again, this game's soundtrack is absolutely remarkable. Green Forest, like Metal Harbor and City Escape, perfectly encapsulates Sonic's blistering speed. Ironically, despite them being my favorite levels, I really don't have too much to say about the speed stages. They're all just so consistently good and representative of Sonic as a character. Green Forest introduces a seldom used but still exciting game mechanic, vine swinging. It's never used for anything more than a few set pieces here and there, but it absolutely adds speed and spectacle to the stage. Luckily, Sonic manages to escape the forest and find his friends just before it... Pumpkin Hill, baby. Oh yeah, you know what that means. More Knuckles rap, and unfortunately it also means more Knuckles gameplay. Pumpkin Hill isn't bad by any means. It's actually a really unique stage thematically. Seriously, the setting is so impressively random. Pumpkin Hill itself is never explained. Ever. The problem for me arises with Pumpkin Hill's size. It's not too big, but traversing the level is slightly more laborious than traversing Wild Canyon was. I'm aware that's a result of raising the difficulty level, otherwise there'd be no kind of progression, but for some reason, Wild Canyon just felt like the perfect sweet spot, and all subsequent hunting stages seem to slowly decline in value to me. Pumpkin Hill is still awesome, don't get me wrong, but its attempt to ramp up its difficulty by expanding the map didn't really make it feel harder, it just feels more laborious than anything. Not a bad stage by any means, but it may be responsible for starting an unfortunate downgrade in level quality going forward. And now for something completely different. Directly after completing Pumpkin Hill, you get to see this.
Citizens of Earth, lend me your ears and listen to me very carefully. My name is Dr. Eggman, the world's greatest scientist, and soon to be the world's greatest ruler. Now witness the beginning of the greatest empire of all time.
Yeah, he came to make an announcement, alright. This scene is terrifying in more than one way. I'd like to mention how disturbing Eggman is here. The old animation, the narcissistic mantras depicted behind him. I am genius, I am wise, I am an emperor. Dean Bristow may not reach the comedic and vocal heights that Mike Pollock did, but he's certainly the most intimidating and maniacal Eggman we ever got. After monologuing about how he's gonna subdue Earth, we pan over to a shot of space, in which a giant celestial walnut explodes into Robotnik's likeness. Not only that, his nose opens from 4 sides, begins to emit a menacing blue light, then shoots an intergalactic death ray directly at the moon, shattering half of its mass and inducing complete hysteria on Earth. Something about the scene is absolutely mortifying. This is literally it. As far as everyone is concerned, the end of the world has just begun. Like 1 minute I'm laughing at how goofy the characters look, and the next I'm like, oh dang. They have 24 hours until Earth is permanently eradicated from the face of the... what's the word? This cutscene leads into Mission Street. A good enough level. You won't often hear me say a lot about the mecha levels, as there's just not that much to chew on. However, there is this gem of a billboard. Yeah, this really existed. Note that his height is marked down as small and his nationality is none. Despite it being a mech stage, Mission Street is pretty alright. It's got a good aesthetic and isn't unreasonably frustrating. Aquatic Mine, however, this is likely when people first started having gripes with Knuckles stages. As the name implies, Aquatic Mine is a water stage. You'll be raising and lowering the water level in order to find emeralds. It's just a bit of a hassle. I don't want to say it's a bad level, but it's certainly not one I look forward to replaying. Something about the traversal just feels cramped and and annoying. Rather than providing you with a large open space for a scavenger hunt, they gave you a small, frustrating cave to suffer your way through. The swimming mechanics being surface level at best don't exactly help the game's case either. Despite all this, I still don't believe the treasure hunting style is fundamentally flawed. The dopamine rush of obtaining a shard is still there, and it's always satisfying. I just wish they had consistently good level design to back it up. Upon completion, Knuckles emerges from the sewers right next to Tails and Amy. After a quick reunion, Tails mentions that he's currently following the president's limo right now, and just rips down Main Street, leaving Amy and Knuckles in the dust. Apparently, he was looking through some government transcripts or whatever, and found out the only way to trace Eggman's coordinates was by breaking into the US president's car. And this is the first time we get to experience the driving minigame, and luckily enough, one of the only times we have to, because this minigame blows. It's not unplayable, it's just long, boring, and clunky Mario Kart. There are some fun tricks you can pull off here and there, and I'm glad they added it as an extra game mode on the title screen. They literally created an entire kart racing game mode you can play against your friends, built into the base game. You don't see that kind of wacky stuff anymore. It's just that the driving levels in the story mode really aren't that good. It feels way too tight and unresponsive to control. Tails eventually locates the president, and we're given a cutscene that depicts Sonic jumping into the president's vehicle, assuring him that everything's gonna be okay, as Tails steals whatever this is. They then both promptly exit the car without providing any context, leaving the president understandably dumbfounded. We then find out that apparently Eggman's secret base is stationed inside of an ancient pyramid. Not only that, but Eggman is currently in space, and the only way to get to space is by infiltrating the pyramid. We end up getting a pretty fair amount of levels from the sequence, a passable Tails stage, an alright Knuckles stage, and a pretty good Sonic stage. However, the stages themselves aren't what I'm most interested in discussing here. Rather, instead, I'd like to touch on the unique bosses you fight whilst in the pyramid. Upon completing Knuckles' 4th stage, Death Chamber, we get this cutscene.
What the... ghost?
King Boom Boo. I cannot stand this boss in any way, shape, form, facet, or reality. They do a good job of making him disturbing, I'll give him that much. He makes these awful grating noises almost constantly. But that certainly isn't the reason I dislike him. I can't stand fighting this boss because he's just not very fun. The core loop isn't bad. Let him chase you until you eventually end up behind him, open the skylights so he turns into a shadow, and bonk him. It's simple, but it's fun enough. The problem arises when every single time you try to outrun him, he insists on turning around and chasing you the other way. It's almost random at times. Near the end of the battle, you'll have to turn around at least 20 times before you even get a chance to flip the switch. You could be running as fast as you want, and he'll still just arbitrarily decide when he wants to turn around. It is infuriating. Thematically memorable, sure, but fun? Not really. Okay, I may have made a mistake while writing this. It turns out you were supposed to wait until Boom Boo began charging a strong attack and then run behind him and attack him. I still don't love the boss fight, but admittedly, that was my mistake. Luckily, Egg Golem manages to pick up some of the slack. He's genuinely well designed and fun to fight, likely as a result of being one of Sonic's bosses. Jumping up the platforms on the Golem's back is pretty fun and satisfying. Overall, Egg Golem is a mechanically and aesthetically satisfying boss, which evidently is somewhat of a rarity in this game. After defeating him and finishing all 3 pyramid levels, we're once again graced by another interesting cutscene.
Green light for launch. Primary engine ignition on. Beginning liftoff countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Shuttle liftoff.
So this is the space colony where Eggman is hiding. What the?
Is everyone all right? We should be landing soon.
The hatch doors are
Don't
open.
sweat it, Knuckles. The only thing in the cargo bay are those
What do you
Master
mean, don't
Emeralds.
sweat it?
Right?
Land the
Knock
shuttle
it
and
off,
let me
Knuckles.
out.
We're gonna crash this thing if you keep that up. Oh no! Don't touch that lever! Whoa!
Yeah, there was a NASA space shuttle hidden within the pyramid the whole time. Why? I don't know. Please be aware, this is not a criticism of the game. I love how stupid this is. Not only that, but the emerald shards scatter. again, but this time into the cold expanse of space. Sonic and friends eventually arrive on the celestial walnut, and Tails explains that it is, in fact, not any walnut, it's a space colony walnut that was allegedly shut down 50 years ago due to a terrible accident. It used to be an extremely high-tech research center, but ever since the incident, it's laid dormant. Now that Sonic has successfully infiltrated the walnut, he and his friends can find a way to shut the cannon down from the inside. Tails also mentions that he's created a fake Chaos Emerald that functions identically to a real emerald, but houses less power. Because because the next level is Eternal Engine. I don't even care. It's another mech stage. It's mid and it drags on for too long. I swear, I don't hate the mech stages. They can actually be pretty satisfying at times, but they're certainly the weakest levels in my eyes. Although, after you beat the level, we see Sonic right next to the cannon controls. All he has to do is put the fake emerald in the slot and blow it up? I think that's what they're trying to do. I can't remember. Anyway, Sonic then gets a transmission from Eggman telling him to meet him back at the research facility. Tails is also behind the phone and tries to warn Sonic about Amy. Pretty climactic moment. So it's only natural that we'd get a Knuckles stage directly in between the action. I don't even. Meteor Herd is Knuckles' last stage, and it's good enough, but every stage since Wild Canyon felt like a decline in quality. It never resulted in any bad stages, maybe aside from Aquatic Mine, but at this point, you kinda just want the hunting to be over. After beating the level, Knuckles and Rouge apologize to each other and make up. Yeah, but you forgot she existed. And she agrees to let Knuckles keep the now fully reassembled Master Emerald. Now we snap back to Sonic. After the transmission, Sonic decides to rush back to the facility and make sure Tails and Amy are okay. Crazy Gadget is Sonic's second to last level, and it's pretty good. It's not my favorite stage. There's a bit more waiting than I'd like, and flipping the switches on and off can be a little pace breaking, but overall I don't think it's bad. It's got a fun aesthetic and a cool gravity reversal gimmick. One of my favorite lines in the whole game comes from Eggman as you're running through the stage.
You're too slow! Sonic, if you don't come here, she will die!
Yeah, right, Eggman. Even you wouldn't go that far. Oh, shoot, I mean, please don't. After finishing Crazy Gadget, we get one of the best cutscenes in the entire Sonic franchise. Not necessarily visually, it's still the 2001 game, but narratively, I love the scene.
Let's take care of business first, shall we, Sonic? Hand over the Chaos Emerald, slowly, and then we'll talk about your girlfriend. That is, if you really care for her.
Handing over the fake emerald? I can kill two birds with one stone.
Put the emerald down right there and back off.
You've turned into a big-time villain, Doctor.
Whoa! You thought you could trick me with that fake emerald, didn't you?
So, how did you know it wasn't the real one?
Tails!
Because you just told me, Fox Boy. Now, for a little space ride. The capsule clears the colony bad.
I'm counting on you, Tails. Amy, take care of yourself.
Farewell, Sonic the Hedgehog.
Sonic!
Farewell, Sonic, my admirable adversary.
Sonic!
Now we have some unfinished business to take care of. If you give me the real emerald, I will release you both. You have my promise.
Sonic!
Huh?
Sonic's asking for the first time to do something for him. I won't let him down. I won't give up.
Everything about the scene is absolutely perfect. The fact that the music just stops dead in its tracks when Sonic gets trapped. At this point, Eggman didn't know that the emerald was fake, but Sonic's overconfidence probably tipped him off. Tails, understandably confused, questions how Eggman even knew it was fake in the first place. And that was all the confirmation he needed. Because of Tails, Eggman can now reasonably send Sonic out into space without worrying about the emerald. After realizing his time is up, Sonic, despite essentially having been doomed by Tails, displays genuine faith in him. He's counting on Tails to keep Amy safe.
And Amy, take care of yourself.
I love this interpretation of Sonic and Amy's relationship. Whereas on surface level, most people see Amy as an annoying brat who just won't leave Sonic alone, Sonic understands that it's out of actual love, and he truly cares about Amy herself as well. Imagine a modern version where Sonic is like, "Alright Tails, make sure to kick Baldy McNosehair's butt. You can do it, buddy." Oh, and Amy? Good riddance. Before the capsule explodes and Sonic literally dies, we see a shot from the inside, which shows Sonic remembering how Tails described the fake emerald, and questioning whether or not he has the power to use Chaos Control, just like Shadow did, even if it was a fake emerald. Well, that plan didn't last long. One of the most underrated highlights of this scene, though, is how Tails reacts to Sonic's death. Modern depictions of the character would lead you to assume he'd cry or cower in fear after his role model lost to the villain. But no, late 90s Tails doesn't give a crap. He jumps straight to business and decides that if Sonic died believing he could defeat Eggman, then he sure as heck isn't gonna let him down. This cutscene leads into a relatively bare-bones boss fight between Tails and Eggman. It's alright, there's nothing to complain about. It's essentially the same thing as Prison Island, but with more explosives. After beating Eggman, we cut back to Knuckles, who's apparently just wandering the Ark. Poor dude probably got lost or something. He acknowledges some kind of strange energy present in the area, and then boom, it's a Sonic, sent down by the heavens above to complete his mission. In reality, he didn't actually die and come back. He managed to use Chaos Control without training, using a fake emerald. It makes absolutely no sense, but I genuinely do not care. It's such a fun and goofy Deus Ex Machina. Even Sonic himself seems surprised he managed to do it. After Knuckles helps him get back on his feet, he remembers that they only have a limited amount of time before the cannon fires. He tells Knuckles to stay behind with Tails and Amy and begins the final rush. This is Sonic's last stage, Final Rush. Final Rush places a heavy emphasis on rail grinding. It's probably the most thematically unique stage in the game. It's intense, high-octane action all the way through. It has the most branching paths out of any Sonic stage from my knowledge. I wouldn't necessarily rank it higher than City Escape personally, but it's still pretty good. It drags on slightly longer than I'd prefer, but hey, who am I to complain about a long Sonic level after Forces? Upon your triumphant completion of the final stage, you're mere moments away from beating the game. But not before getting interrupted by, guess who? Shadow.
I thought that capsule you were in exploded in space.
You know, what can I say? I die hard. You actually saved me, you know.
It was a Chaos Emerald, wasn't it? But there's no way you could have activated the Chaos Control using an emerald that's fake. So, there's more to you than just looking like me. What are you, anyway?
What you see is what you get. Just a guy that loves adventure. I'm Sonic the Hedgehog.
I see. But you know, I can't let you live. Your adventuring days are coming to an end.
This scene has been absolutely memed to death, and for good reason. It's cheesy, you can barely hear Sonic over the background music, but I think it's a pretty good final scene between the two. Their conversation leads directly into the final boss battle, Sonic versus Shadow. Aesthetically, this battle is great. I love the dark blue lighting and view of the earth below. Mechanically, it's alright. It's better than the Green Forest fight, but similar to King Boom Boo, it often seems to artificially drag on. Both Sonic and Shadow are sprinting next to each other, and you need to catch each other off guard to attack. Every once in a while, Shadow will use Chaos Control to disappear and then reappear in front of you, but it's pretty simple in the grand scheme of things. Once you finally beat Shadow, we cut back to Tails and Amy after Tails took care of Eggman. He tunes into Sonic's comm to tell him he succeeded, knowing full well he won't be receiving a response. And then...
Awesome job, Tails.
Sonic!
Look outside.
Ooh.
That was Sonic Adventure 2, a cheesy, simple, and charming experience. There are a few games as memorable to me than... You thought we were done, didn't you? Yeah, right.
Eggman steals the research from a military base located on an island to the south. The military's top-secret weapon, Shadow, sealed in the space colony Ark, the 7 Chaos Emerald. When all of the keys have been collected, world conquest will be at hand. Sonic Adventure 2, The Dark Side Story. Long live the Eggman Empire.
The Dark Story. The first time in Sonic history we not only got to see the story from the villain's perspective, but got to play as the villains. I can't stress how cool of a concept this is. The hero story alone is a short and sweet experience, but now, your playtime just got doubled. Not only that, but each character has their own unique stages. The story itself certainly overlaps, which I believe is a good thing, but the gameplay is made entirely fresh. You once again get to choose between 3 playable characters: Eggman, Rouge, and Shadow. The same playstyle philosophy applies as well. You'll be gunning down enemies as Eggman, hunting for treasure as Rouge, and speeding through levels as Shadow. Now, in terms of overall spectacle, I'd rank the hero story above the Dark Story. But if we're talking about narrative, Dark Story is just better. Deeper concepts, new characters, internal conflict. Even if I prefer Team Sonic's gameplay, there's something so much more meaningful being built in Shadow's character. The dark stages are good, don't get me wrong. I'll be highlighting a few as the video continues, but I'm going to be shifting focus a little in order to focus far more on the narrative, as I have a lot more to say about the dark side of the story than the hero side. So, similar to the hero story, we begin with a heavy emphasis on GUN, or GUN, the Guardian Units of Nations. Eggman, realistic explosions and all, is shown attempting to break his way into GUN's military base. He notes that he's in search of a top-secret military weapon that was created by his grandfather, Gerald Robotnik. Apparently, the military had the project shut down because they feared it. This leads into the first dark stage, Iron Gate. It's good. That's about it. After spending a good while infiltrating GUN's facilities, Eggman finally finds what he was looking for.
So this is the military's top-secret weapon. It's a lot smaller than I expected. Enter user data. Enter password. Password is Maria. Maria. Now all I have to do is to place the Chaos Emerald into this console. Is that you, Sonic? Are you trying to spoil my plans again? Wait a minute. You're not Sonic. This is impossible.
My name is Shadow. Since you were so kind to release me, my master, I will grant you one wish.
Now, what?
Behold the true power I possess.
The quote-unquote weapon Eggman had been searching for was apparently Shadow. This is the first time we ever canonically see Shadow appear. Upon replaying the game, I find myself scratching my head at his first few lines. Since you were so kind to release me, my master, I will grant you one wish. Bro's talking like he's a genie. I really don't understand why they wrote him like that. After Shadow shows off his sick air shoes, we get our first dark boss battle, which is essentially the exact same battle Sonic has with the gun mech. Shadow is mechanically identical to Sonic, maybe save for a few different upgrades throughout the game, but he roller skates, so all is forgiven. SEGA, you've won my heart back. After completing the boss, Eggman is impressed at how quickly Shadow took care of the guard robot, and understandably, questions what Shadow meant when he offered Eggman a wish.
Bring more Chaos Emeralds.
Shadow, wait!
I'll be waiting for you in the central control room on the Space Colony Ark.
After that cutscene, we are reintroduced to Knuckles and Rouge. The scene plays out exactly like last time, Knuckles breaking the emerald and all, but instead you play as Rouge. Her motivation is essentially me want shiny thing. She's a good character, but especially this early on, she's not particularly important to the plot, although that certainly changes later. Dry Lagoon is pretty similar to Wild Canyon, but I think I like it just a little bit more. Same size, but more dynamic environments. And there's a turtle. The majority of Rouge's levels are basically Knuckles stages, but without the rap music, although she does have the more unique stages overall. I'll elaborate as we go forward. After beating Dry Lagoon, we go right into Sand Ocean, another Eggman stage. This is gonna become a theme. Once again, it's alright, no real complaints here. I like the aesthetic. Eggman is currently making his way back into his secret pyramid base, cause he's stupid and he needs time to think about Shadow's cryptic requests. After entering the pyramid, we get treated to this gem of an animation, and Eggman finds out that Sonic is, in fact, now on local news. Not only that, but he's reportedly broken into the bank and stolen a Chaos Emerald. But Eggman rightly recognizes that Sonic isn't a felon. This sounds far more like the work of Shadow. In fact, the local news literally has a close-up of Shadow, red stripes and all, yet still mistakes him for Sonic. This has been a strange plot point in the minds of many fans throughout the years. It seems the most likely explanation is that Shadow's early design resembled Sonic far more than his final design does, and that swapping to the more edgy, distinct design we have now is a choice made later in development. Directly after Robotnik sees Shadow in the news, we cut over to Shadow's current location.
How pathetic.
Find them before they escape! Maria!
What?
Shadow, I beg of you, please, do
Maria!
it for me. For all the people on that planet. Sayonara, Shadow, the Hedgehog.
I still remember what I promised you. For the people of this planet, I promise you. Revenge!
There's that name again. Maria. We heard it first when Eggman was inputting the code to unlock Shadow, and now we're hearing it in the form of a flashback. We hear the sounds of military chatter inside of what seems to be the space colony. After painfully exclaiming her name, we're shown Shadow being locked inside an escape pod, looking at who we can only assume is Maria. She requests that Shadow carry out some unspoken action, that it would be for the people of that planet. After saying sayonara, she presses the button and sends Shadow down to Earth. Shadow then, through his internal dialogue, reveals that apparently what Maria wanted from him was revenge, leading directly into Shadow's first stage, Radical Highway, the cool, edgy alternative to City Escape. If City Escape was an A rank, Radical Highway is a B rank, a moonlit cityscape in contrast to City Escape's bright and vibrant Main Street. It just lacks the same flair that City Escape so perfectly exudes, but it's still not a bad stage by any means. Grinding down the Golden Gate Bridge is absolutely radical. On a related note, every time you pull off a trick in-game, like chaining together attacks or doing a ramp flip, the amount of points you're rewarded will have these 90s buzzwords plastered over them. Radical, extreme, jammin'! Right after Radical Highway, we're given our second example of narrative interlap. Luckily, since Sonic and Shadow's meeting cutscene isn't too geared towards one character or the other, they just played the same cutscene and touched it up a little. Next up, Egg Quarters, literally just Death Chamber but with Rouge. Rouge finds her way into Eggman's secret base and discovers Eggman's space transporter, which answers a question I somehow didn't even have until now. How the heck Eggman got to space without the shuttle? Although now the shuttle existing is making even less sense. Anyway, Rouge mentions that it's her mission to find out what Eggman's up to, and teleports herself to the Ark. At the same time, Eggman is attempting to find his way to the central control room aboard the Lost Colony. Appropriately, this leads into his next level, Lost Colony. Again, I really don't have that much to say here. The dark levels aren't bad by any means, just marginally less memorable than the hero ones. Assumedly due to most players starting with the hero story, and then playing the dark story. If anyone still watching actually started with the dark story, let me know, because if so, you're awesome. Either way, yeah, good stage, just not memorable for any particular reason. By the time Eggman makes it to the control room, Shadow has already arrived.
I've been waiting for you, Doctor. Now, I will show the glorious achievement of what the world's leading scientist, Professor Gerald, has created. The Ark was the first space colony created by mankind. Not many people know that the Ark contained a top-secret research facility where weapons of mass destruction were being created. This is one of them. A weapon capable of destroying an entire planet. Codenamed the Eclipse Cannon.
Destroying an entire planet? Was this my grandfather's legacy?
But it's been deactivated for some time now. To reactivate it, large amounts of energy are necessary.
Oh, so that's why we needed the Chaos Emerald.
Exactly. To reactivate the machine, we need the 7 Chaos Emeralds. Once you have that, then you have the ultimate power of destruction to use as you please. And then, the world could be yours.
Sounds like fun. I like the way you think, Shadow. I will get the Chaos Emeralds, use the machine to dominate the world and build a legacy
Do you
of
really
my
think
own.
it will be that easy? I've got a great idea. How about making a deal?
Deal?
When you grabbed that huge emerald, you said something about a reaction. A reaction that it may have with the Master Emerald. Now, if you could just let me borrow that radar, I may be able to help you. What do you think?
If I do, what's in it for me?
I have an idea where the other Chaos Emeralds may be. It may not look like it, but do you know that I am a treasure hunter that specializes in all kinds of jewels?
Very well.
Okay then, it's a deal. I don't think we've been introduced. I'm Rouge the Bat, but you can call me Rouge.
With a trio formed in a directive set, Team Dark is officially born. I'd like to note how interesting Rouge's character is for a moment. She's a treasure hunter who, in addition to wanting the pieces of the Master Emerald, also seems to be some sort of double agent attempting to decipher Eggman's plans by pretending to be on his side. Although at this point in the story, it's still blurry as to who exactly she's working for. Now that Team Dark has an objective to operate under, they travel to Prison Island in order to locate and steal the remaining Chaos Emeralds needed to power the cannon. Eggman's job is to distract the military troops. Rouge's job is to steal the emeralds themselves, and Shadow's job is to rig the island to blow up. Yeah, Team Dark leveled an entire coastal region and it is never brought up again. After establishing the plan, Eggman sets off to distract the military in his second stage in a row, Weapons Bed. This stage isn't actually that bad, if you're not trying to get an A rank, that is. I made the mistake of trying to A rank as many stages as I could throughout the story mode, and my goodness, don't even try with Weapons Bed. It's so easy to fall off and die at any given moment, just don't. Please. Following Eggman's distraction, guess who it is? Amy. In typical fashion, she mistakes Shadow for Sonic momentarily, before realizing she's not hugging her beloved and backpedals in fear. Note that Shadow isn't reeling in disgust either. His modern interpretations would most likely have him run away from her or say something edgy. But nah, Shadow hasn't become a silly edgelord stereotype yet. He's just amused and confused. Eggman then threatens to fight Amy for no particular reason, and Tails swoops in to save her. Same exact boss fight from earlier on in the game ensues. Tails versus Eggman. Meanwhile, Rouge begins what I controversially believe to be her best stage, Security Hall. You see, in Security Hall, you're required to find 3 Chaos Emeralds within a 5-minute time limit. Most people dislike this stage and find it far too constraining, but personally, I like it. The time limit adds an extra layer to the hunting gameplay, something I felt was missing in the latter half of Knuckles stages. Sure, it can be annoying to first-time players, but in retrospect, Security Hall is my favorite treasure hunting stage. Once she collects all 3 of the emeralds, Rouge runs into generic gun boss fight number 47. Fly, hit, repeat, dead. After pummeling the mech, Rouge signals Shadow via comms, explaining that she's somehow failed to escape the headquarters and needs his help.
I can't believe that I'm trapped inside this locked safe with a Chaos Emerald. I guess I won't be able to call myself a treasure hunter anymore.
Shoot, troublemaker.
What I love about this scene is that it shows Shadow's inner struggle. Not only does he decide to save Rouge because she has the emeralds, but he's also reminded of Maria in that moment. We may not yet know exactly why this is relevant, but I still think it's a great minimalistic scene that paints him in a more relatable light. Anyway, this cutscene leads right into White Jungle, a stage that is admittedly very similar to Green Forest. But once again, if Green Forest was an A, White Jungle is more of an A-. Still a great stage, just doesn't have the upbeat and urgent theme to back it up. Although you do get to indulge in some silly swingy fun. In his rush to save Rouge, Shadow unfortunately runs into Sonic again, adding a lot more comedic value to the line,
That blue hedgehog again, of all places.
After duking it out with Sonic, Eggman reminds Shadow to get the heck out of there before the island.
Blows up!
The Hedgehogs go their separate ways, and with only a few seconds left on the timer and the power of chaos control, Shadow manages to escape with Rouge and the emeralds intact. Right after, we finally get some more insight as to who Maria really is.
Shadow, what do you think it's like on Earth?
The professor said his life's work was dedicated to all of those who live down there. He once told that the reason for his existence was making people happy through the power of science.
Shadow.
Maria, I just don't know anything anymore. I often wonder why I was created, what my purpose is for being here. Maybe if I go down there, I will find the answers. Maybe. Maria.
It seemed like Maria and Shadow were friends. Maria speaks about her desire to learn what Earth is like, implying that she only really remembers life on the Ark. Shadow shares a similar sentiment, wondering if maybe he can find some kind of purpose on Earth. The scene ends too quickly for us to gather any more context. And oh boy, the moon blew up. Remember that? I do. The Eclipse Cannon requires all 7 Chaos Emeralds to function at full power, and if you remember from earlier, Tails is in possession of the 7th. After some genuinely hilarious animation, Team Dark begins pursuing Tails in order to steal the final emerald, but not before Rouge links back up to her employers.
This is Rouge reporting. Currently, I have not been able to confirm if Shadow is the ultimate life form or not. I will continue my research on Project Shadow and have a follow-up report very shortly. Just a reminder, don't forget about my jewels.
A lot of interesting buzzwords being used. Project Shadow, ultimate life form. Whatever Rouge is attempting to discover, she's certainly doing a good job of hiding her true loyalties. This cutscene is followed up by another kart racing level. I literally forgot the stage existed when writing the script, which should communicate to you my personal verdict on this level. But the following level is Sky Rail. Obviously placing an emphasis on rail grinding, Sky Rail is short and sweet. It doesn't overstay its welcome, nor does it end too quickly. The only downside is the grinding mechanic. Control-wise, it's mixed. The original Dreamcast version of SA2 allegedly had far better grinding controls than the GameCube port, or the PC port, which is the GameCube port ported to PC. Unfortunately, complete accuracy was not retained in the porting process, making rail grinding far more touchy than it needs to be. Regardless, if you're willing to look past the janky controls and embrace grinding for the goofiness that it is, Skyrail is one of Shadow's best stages. Something I don't think many people notice either is that Skyrail is actually just Pumpkin Hill. No, really, look at the background. Same landscape, similar textures. The level takes place in the Pumpkin Hill region during the daytime. Unfortunately, despite finishing the stage quite quickly, Shadow wasn't able to catch up to Tails, and he gets away. We then rather abruptly cut to Sonic and friends after they've successfully infiltrated Eggman's pyramid. The scenes play out as usual. Sonic, in all his poorly translated glory, bonks the Egg Golem, apparently breaking its restraining bolt and making it attack Eggman. So now, rather than the usual Sonic versus Egg Golem fight, you get to experience Eggman versus Egg Golem. Thematically identical, mechanically different. Rather than scaling the Golem and attacking him, Eggman has to aim for weak spots and whittle him down. Good enough boss fight as long as you don't fall into the quicksand. Following your triumph, Sonic and friends launch the shuttle and arrive at the Ark. Meanwhile, we're treated to a cutscene of Rouge, attempting to outplay Eggman and gain access to some top secret files.
Hi, Doctor. How's it going? What? What do you mean they escaped? That's okay. I will go after them myself. Can you tell me the password for the space colony control? Tricking that old doctor is just too easy. All right, it's time to get to work. The password is Maria. Maria, I've heard that name somewhere before. Oh well. this is it. Research Project Shadow, the ultimate life form. Let's see now. What in the world is this? This can't be right. Just what is Shadow, anyway? I guess I'll just have to take the last pieces of the Master Emerald.
Every arc scene seems to reveal more about Shadow's true nature, but before Rouge can delve deeper into her findings, the canon recognizes an emerald signature nearby. Rouge, concluding that the Master Emerald shards must be nearby, gets distracted and runs off to nab them. And guess what that means? Mad Space, a fitting title in more than one way. Mad Space is just not that fun. Disorienting gravity, near useless garbled hints that are more trouble than they're worth. It isn't quite as bad as Aquatic Mine, but it's certainly lower on the list. At the very least, there was an attempt to innovate the gameplay with the gravity mechanic. Unfortunately, I wouldn't say it exactly paid off. Mad Space ends with a Knuckles boss fight, which per usual is just a reskin of the Rouge boss fight during Meteor Herd. Things continue as usual afterwards. Rouge begrudgingly decides to give Knuckles a break and lets him have the remaining emerald shards.
I'm sorry if I hurt you.
We should get going.
Guys, I think they like each other. Eggman, back in his pyramid base, picks up 2 energy signatures coming from the Ark, both resembling Chaos Emeralds. Since Team Dark already has 6 of them, Eggman rightly assumes that Team Sonic created a dummy emerald. I appreciate this cutscene. It gives slightly more context as to how Eggman could have possibly known the emerald was fake in the first place, beyond blind intuition. Anyway, Eggman decides to pursue Sonic in search of the emerald and teleports back up to the Ark, which starts the final Eggman stage, Cosmic Wall. I hate it. Look, Cosmic Wall is conceptually good. A mech level in open space provides for more mobility as a result of zero gravity. That part is cool. It's the fact that this level will drag on for 6 to 12 minutes that peeves me. People outside of the Sonic sphere may not understand why that's a bad thing. Most good Sonic stages tend to last roughly 2 to 4 minutes in my mind, 5 at the most. Cosmic Wall just feels unreasonably long and laborious to trek through. It's a fun enough stage, it's just far too much of an adequate thing. By the end, you may even be wishing it was over. Add on to this the fact that the more arduous the stage, the more frustrating the A rank, and you've concocted a pretty lame level. Whenever you're attempting to reach a high score, it just feels like you're tiptoeing your way around. Well, don't fall. Well, don't lose your rings. Well, calm down, buddy. As the narrative interlap continues, we once again witness the infamous scene of Eggman outsmarting Sonic and sending him off to his explosive death. Everything plays out as usual, other than the fact that for some reason Eggman seems to defeat Tails in gameplay, despite that certainly not being the canon outcome. I'll let you experience the upcoming scenes on your own.
I guess he was just a regular hedgehog after all.
Legend has it when all 7 Chaos Emeralds are collected, the power creates a miracle. I have 6 of them. They're mine. All mine.
I don't think so.
Shadow.
So that was your plan from the very beginning. Or was it a direct order from the president? Now I know who you are. You're that government spy, Rouge the Bat, aren't you?
So you did your homework, is that it? I would say that's an invasion of privacy.
I could say the same thing about you.
It looks like things aren't quite going your way, but since my job was done, I thought it was time to take what's mine and get out of this place.
You are one pathetic creature.
Look who's talking. What about you? Here are the results of the research project called the Ultimate Life Form. But if this picture is of the real ultimate life form named Shadow, then exactly who or what is standing in front of me?
This is Dr. Eggman. I have found all 7 Chaos Emeralds. Shit. Someone is trying to get the Eclipse cannon. There's not much time left before the cannon fires again. Can you get over there?
If you want to live, leave the Chaos Emeralds where they are. The fake emerald is good enough for you.
Do you actually believe that you're the real Shadow?
No doubt.
Even your memories might not be real, you know?
Even if my memories are not real, it's still me, Shadow. And I will fulfill my promise to Maria. That's the only thing that matters to me now.
Call it cheesy. I love this scene. It brings up so many interesting concepts. Although, first off, I'd like to mention how goofy this line is.
Now I know who you are. You're that government spy, Rouge the Bat, aren't you?
Shadow says this as if it's some kind of well-known info. Considering Shadow had only been exposed to modern society within the last day or two, Rouge's status as a government spy must be extremely impressively notable. Therefore, why the heck didn't he put two and two together when she literally introduced herself as Rouge the Bat? Not really a genuine criticism, just a silly note of what I assume to be a translation error. Anyway, Rouge, after having been tasked by the government with researching Shadow's origins, asks some thought-provoking questions. If all the documentation of the ultimate life form, Project Shadow, seems to depict a reptilian beast, who exactly is Shadow? Is he even a result of the original project, or could he be an accident? Which life form was the success? This question obviously bothers Shadow, and is one of the few times we get to see him vulnerable. David Humphrey's performance as Shadow is still my favorite interpretation of this character. He perfectly exemplifies a hardened heart, who in reality is just searching for answers. The line,
"Even if my memories are not real, it's still me, Shadow, and I will fulfill my promise to Maria. That's the only thing that matters to me now,"
evokes such a desperate confidence. Shadow is wavering. He's affected by these realizations, but can't let it take him over just yet. Not when his objective is directly in front of him. Seriously, such a great scene. Shortly afterwards, the final full stage of the Dark Story begins, Final Chase. In essence, it's extremely similar to Sonic's Final Rush, only variation being a different gimmick. Final Rush was far more dependent on rail grinding. Final Chase focuses more on these rotating gravity cylinders. Final Chase is alright. It's thematically just as good as Final Rush, but engages me slightly less. The cylinders are a fun concept at first, but can occasionally feel like a pace breaker. This also brings to my attention that Shadow only has 4 full stages of his own, yet Sonic gets 6. I understand putting more emphasis on Sonic's gameplay than Tails or Knuckles, but Shadow has the least stages in the Dark Story. And don't get me wrong, all 4 of his stages range from good to great, but he just didn't manage to reach the same height Sonic did. For being one of the first truly 3-dimensional Sonic characters, emotionally and polygonally, Shadow deserved better. Just like in the hero story, the dark narrative comes to a close with a Sonic vs. Shadow boss fight. It's mechanically identical to the hero variant, just with swapped skins. But after beating Sonic, we're given a different ending. Not an alternate ending, mind you, but another perspective.
This completes my plan to take over the world. Now begins the glorious era of the Empire of Eggman.
For all intents and purposes, Eggman won. Sonic may have survived at the end of his story, but all the emeralds are in place. Eggman assumedly slipped away from Tails and Amy amidst their celebration, and threw the last emerald into the cannon. The only thing he didn't seem to notice was the warning. The scene cuts off directly after zooming into the console, and once the credits finish playing,
The ultimate life form,
Chaos
vengeance,
control.
Space desperation.
Supersonic.
Collision.
Untamed power of chaos.
Professor Gerald,
the
truth about 50 years ago.
Sonic Adventure 2. Last episode. Wishes are eternal.
I assure you, we're not done yet. After completing both the Hero and Dark stories, you're granted access to a final story, the last episode. The trailer seems to promise answers to the mystery surrounding Shadow, Maria, and Gerald. Go ahead and get yourself a snack. The story isn't over yet.
What's going on? Why doesn't the cannon fire? What's happening here? It's my grandfather, Gerald Robotnik.
This is the first time we see Gerald. The doctor is sat in a chair, face down as if he's mourning, with chains around his arms and legs. Meanwhile, Rouge comes to warn Knuckles and Sonic that the colony is currently barreling towards Earth at an alarming velocity. As the camera pans behind, Gerald reappears in the research lab's monitor.
This is a death sentence for every human being on Earth. If my calculations are correct, the space colony arc will impact the Earth in 27 minutes and 53 seconds. All of you will be destroyed, along with your beloved planet Earth.
I plan to give you a taste of my revenge once all the 7 Chaos Emeralds are collected. Once I initiate this program, it cannot be disabled. All of you ungrateful humans who took everything away from me will feel my loss and despair.
Is there anything else you want to say?
No.
Ready!
What's going on here? Who is that?
The scene feels so out of place in a Sonic game. A leading scientist's death sentence, directly before being executed by firing team, describing how he wishes to enact Armageddon on Earth's inhabitants. I'd like to point out the spotlights as well. They illuminate a series of equations behind Gerald, the same equations written on the cell wall that Sonic was placed in at the beginning of the game. Eggman then enters the lab and reminisces about how great of an evil genius his grandfather was, and hands Gerald's diary to Rouge, who inserts it into the console.
I don't quite know what happened or what went wrong. Was it a mistake to create the ultimate life form? I thought it would be something that would benefit mankind, but then the military guards landed on the colony that day. They were sent to destroy the research project that I had been working on. My colleagues at the research facility, my granddaughter, Maria, I hope you are all safe. The colony was completely shut down, probably to keep the prototype from falling into the wrong hands.
The Ark was shut down under the premise that there had been an accident. I found Maria's name among those who died when the Ark was shut down. She meant everything to me, and I couldn't bear the thought that she died because of my research. I lost everything. I had nothing more to live for. I went insane. All I could think about was to avenge her. Somehow, some way. I got scared as I no longer was able to control my thoughts. All I could think about was that I wanted it all to be. Based on my original projections, I was able to complete my project, Shadow. I designed its mind to be perfect. Pure. I will leave everything to him. If you wish, release and awaken it
If
to
you
the
wish
world.
to fill the world with destruction... Oh, so that's why you released Shadow from the base.
Maria Robotnik, Gerald's granddaughter, was murdered by Gun's soldiers. Maria's death sent him into a fit of insanity. Gun, wanting to shut down Project Shadow before it could become a threat, took the life of a child, a girl who was innocent of any of the crimes her grandfather had committed. Oof, this is intense stuff. We'll get back to it soon enough. As for the present, Sonic and friends, along with Eggman and Rouge, need to find a way to stop the Ark's collision course. After some more cheesy dialogue, Rouge mentions that the Master Emerald houses the power to control the Chaos Emeralds. Knuckles acknowledges this and agrees to use it to harness the Emerald's power. With everyone, excluding Amy and Shadow, on the same page, we start the real final level. Canon's Core. At its foundation, this stage is awesome. You get to play through one stage as 5 characters: Tails, Eggman, Rouge, Knuckles, and Sonic, each having their own bite-sized gameplay segments. It certainly steers clear of becoming bloated or dragging on, and as such, avoids falling victim to my main issues with the other late-game stages. The only flaw with Canon's Core in my mind is the live system. It's a pretty long stage all in all, and if you run out of lives, you have to replay every character's segment. Logically, this makes sense, but man is it a drag. Now, you may be wondering where Amy and Shadow are during all of this. After finishing the level, we're treated to this cutscene. Okay, I'm editing the script right now, and I originally forgot to mention something. Whenever you exit a level and re-enter a story, it'll play a small journal entry from whichever character you're about to play as. Cool, right? And if you reboot the game at this scene, we get our first and only journal entry from Amy, featuring some obscure art that I had personally never seen before. Just thought that was neat. Okay, back to the video.
I hate it when they leave me behind. Look, it's Shadow. I really gotta stop whining. Everyone's trying their best to help out, and so must I. Shadow, we need you. Please help us.
It's all going according to plan. There's no reason for me to help them. Besides, There's no way to save anyone.
There has to be. I know that people fight over the most trivial things. Some people may be selfish, like the professor said. But they're basically good if they try their best and never give up on their wishes. They always have a reason to be happy. That's why you should help them out. Saving them is a good thing. Shadow, I beg you, please do it for them. Give them a chance.
Shadow, I beg of you, please, do it for me. For a
Maria!
better future. For all people who live on that planet, give them a chance to be happy. Let them live for their dreams. Shadow, I know you can do it. That's the reason why you were brought into this world. Sayonara, Shadow the
That's what I
Hedgehog.
promised her. And I must keep that promise. That's what
Shadow?
Maria wished for. I've got to go now. I have to keep my promise to Maria and you.
Sure, Amy's pep talk is cheesy. They stumble over each other's lines, and Shadow's mocap run cycle is hilarious. But once again, I love this scene. Shadow is reminded of Maria, but this time his memories flood back to him with full clarity. Amy's speech struck a chord in his head. He remembered what Maria truly wanted him to do. She wanted him to give Earth's people a chance to be happy. Despite possibly being created to bring death and destruction, Shadow's promise to Maria overpowers any doubts he's had about his creation. After shedding a single tear, he's off. As Sonic and Knuckles approach the Ark's core, they come across a room, perfectly resembling the Master Emerald Shrine, assumedly created as a way to harness the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Gerald evidently had to research the Emerald's history. If I may digress for just a moment, there's a fan theory out there that attempts to explain why Gerald created Shadow as a hedgehog. It proposes that he did so because he saw this mural from Sonic 3 and Knuckles, while researching the power of the Master Emerald. All just headcanon, but an extremely cool idea regardless. While running full sprint towards the shrine, projections of Gerald begin to spew forth from the core, stopping Sonic and Knuckles in their tracks. And after the projections cease,
Could this be the prototype of the ultimate life form that was supposed to be encapsulated?
How did you know that? The Bio Lizard, the same reptilian creature we saw reports of earlier in the story. This is the ultimate life form's prototype, confirming that Shadow is, in fact, the final version. After somehow arriving this quickly, Shadow willingly offers to buy the other's time and faces his prototype in battle. The Bio Lizard is my favorite boss. For a game riddled with mediocre, formulaic bosses, this one in particular is a diamond in the rough. The Bio Lizard operates within a large circle, and he'll move left and right within that circle, forcing Shadow to adjust accordingly. After wearing the lizard out and dodging his projectiles, he'll expose his weak spot. To deal damage to him, you literally rail grind up the tubes on his body. Rinse and repeat this process a few times, and he'll enter his second phase, in which he raises a giant wall of orbs Shadow must scale in order to reach his weak spot. He'll most likely end up defeating him within 3 to 5 minutes. Absolutely brilliant boss. Mechanically, he's alright. Not perfect, but still really cool. But add in the story implications of Shadow having to combat his biological predecessor, and you've got one heck of a fight. After you defeat the Bio Lizard and Shadow verbally assaults it,
Get out, you ugly prototype!
Sonic and Knuckles manage to reach the shrine. Knuckles places the emerald on the pedestal and begins to recite the ancient Echidna descriptor. Yeah, there's an entire game before this, by the way. The servers are the 7 Chaos. Chaos is power. Power is enriched by the heart. The controller is the one that unifies the chaos. Chaos itself is such a cryptic and mysterious concept that's rarely ever elaborated upon in the mainline games. For all functional purposes, it's what lets Sonic go super. But on a deeper level, I'd be interested to research what chaos power truly is. The Master Emerald begins to glow, and the process seems to be progressing smoothly. However, the Bio Lizard isn't dead yet. After letting out a piercing roar, it uses chaos control to teleport elsewhere. The Master Emerald negated the power of the Chaos Emeralds, right? Yet the Ark is still on a crash course for Earth. At this moment, Eggman taps into their comms and notifies them that the lizard has, quote, become one with the colony and is determined to keep it on its collision course. Knuckles is understandably concerned, but in a moment of clarity, Sonic and Shadow know exactly what they have to do. Not only does Super Sonic return, but we get our first canon appearance of Super Shadow. Harnessing the power of the Chaos Emeralds, both hedgehogs exit the cannon's core and appear directly outside the colony. So begins the last boss of the game, Final Hazard. The Bio-Lizard seems to have merged with the colony itself and is somehow keeping it on track for Earth. This is the best boss fight in the entire series to me. Don't get me wrong, Chaos is amazing, but this was the first time you got to swap between two of the main characters in the final fight, battling this reptilian behemoth in the vacuum of space as Live and Learn blasts in the background. This is the first and only time we hear Live and Learn during gameplay, and it's easily one of the best tracks in the entire series. It's a relatively simple boss mechanically. Hit the weak spot before your rings run out, swap to Shadow, rinse and repeat, swap to Sonic. But man, if this isn't one of the most memorable and iconic battles in video game history, I don't know what is. After approximately 2 minutes of the most cinematic part of the game, you finally triumph over the Final Hazard.
I must destroy all the evil the Professor has created.
No way that's getting through!
Shadow, I beg of you.
Maria.
Give them a chance to be happy.
Now, Shadow! Chaos Control!
Maria, this is what you wanted, right? This is my promise I made to you.
Where is Shadow? Do you really think that the Professor created him, Shadow, to carry out the revenge on all those who live here on Earth?
He was what he was, a brave and heroic hedgehog who gave his life to save this planet. Shadow the Hedgehog.
This ending, this entire sequence is one of my favorites in video game history. With his promise to Maria fulfilled, Shadow died, calling out to her in his final moments, asking if this is what she truly wanted. I know it's just a stupid game about a fast blue guy, but this still hits really hard. Later on in the series, we'd see this death retcon, and Shadow would be brought back to appease fan demand. And I'm glad they do that. He's arguably at his best in 06, but narratively, I wish they had never brought him back. His character arc was perfectly fulfilled in the final cutscene. This is one of the first times we ever see Sonic genuinely mourn the loss of someone he had come to consider a friend. We even see him holding Shadow's inhibitor ring and contemplating what being the ultimate life form really meant. After Amy approaches Sonic and asks him what's wrong, he brushes it off and suggests they hurry home back to Earth, but not before offering one final farewell to the Black Hedgehog.
Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
The fact that Sonic echoes Maria's goodbye word for word is so powerful. If you didn't grow up with Sonic, you, understandably, probably aren't nearly as affected by this scene, or this story, or this game. But for those of us who've been in the community since we were little, this hits hard. When Sonic fans tear up at this ending, it's not just because they loved the characters, or the world, or the narrative. It's because this game is so closely associated with our childhoods. It provided such a raw wonder and enthrallment in our younger years. In a way, Sonic waving goodbye to the audience is somewhat of a poetic bidding adieu to our childhood. All the memories we made with Sonic. All the nostalgia we cherish deeply because of this series. It's in the past. We can never go back. That's what makes this ending so perfectly bittersweet to me. You may be confused. Half of this video was me ragging on the game and criticizing it for poor design choices, and I still stand by those opinions. But if you think that makes it a bad game, you're missing the point. I love Sonic Adventure 2 despite all of its flaws. Some of those flaws even serve to make the game more endearing. I know most people watching will probably think this whole monologue is overdramatic and cringy, but that doesn't matter to me, and it shouldn't matter to you either. If you love this game, if it reignites a childlike passion in you, be willing to own that. No one gets to tell you what's cool to like and what isn't. Part of being a Sonic fan is enduring the name calling and light teasing, especially for a franchise that's made so many mistakes. But I implore you not to care. It's okay to love this game. If it's something as wholesome as this, don't let it be a guilty pleasure. Your attachment to these games may even lead others to experiencing the wonder you did when you were young. Now, I'd like to not so smoothly segue into a few interesting topics of discussion that I couldn't manage to fit into the main script. If you don't care, that's totally cool. Thanks for watching. But for those of you who'd like to explore the game just a tad bit more, go ahead and stick around for a little while. First and foremost, I'd like to reiterate just how incredibly replayable this game is. I have hundreds of hours in this one goofy Sonic game. It's genuinely impressive how much content they fit into this thing. Every stage has 4 extra challenge modes to play through and complete, adding such a wealth of playtime. Combine that with the tight but fair ranking system, and you've got hours and hours of content. I do, however, harbor one specific complaint with the system: the Lost Chow missions. Having to meticulously search these speed levels for a hidden Chow is a bit of a pace breaker. Now, I usually wouldn't have reason to complain about an optional game mode, but the Chow missions are always the 3rd challenge out of 5, thereby barring entry to the time trial challenge and the hard mode challenge, unless you force yourself through the Chow missions. A minor complaint, but still a bit of a glaring issue in regards to accessibility. On that same topic, did you know that you can unlock a super secret stage if you collect every emblem in the game? Obtaining every emblem requires A ranking every stage 5 times. Not only that, but you also gain emblems from secondary modes like kart racing and the Chow Garden. Now, I have a confession to make. I don't love the Chow Garden nearly as much as some do. Now, let me clarify, that doesn't mean I dislike it. I like the Chow Garden quite a lot. Having a built-in Tamagotchi simulator is absolutely fantastic. I just don't tend to fawn over it as much as some players do. It's a brilliant and well-executed concept, but I've just never been super personally invested in it. Until recently. I've been finding more and more joy in this game mode throughout the past few weeks. Playing the game with someone else who's genuinely in love with the Chow Garden can certainly heighten your own experience with it. I'd also like to quickly compare how SA2 handles multiple storylines to how SA1 handles them, because I want to talk about it and I couldn't fit it in earlier. SA1 had 6 stories, all intertwining with each other in some meaningful way. SA2 has 2 stories and 6 characters. From a narrative perspective, I'd say I prefer SA2's approach. It's a lot simpler to comprehend and maintains a good level of variety, but mechanically, I much prefer SA1's approach. If I boot up Sonic Adventure wanting to play as Sonic, I can do that. Sonic and only Sonic for a good hour or 2. If I boot up Sonic Adventure 2 wanting to play as Sonic, I can also do that, but I also have to play as Tails and Knuckles in between. One could argue that this is what the level select is for, and I'd agree to an extent. This menu is wonderful and extremely efficient, but there's just nothing like seeing these cheesy cutscenes play right into the levels themselves. A more cinematic story, unfortunately, came at the cost of player agency. I don't dislike any game mode in SA2, but you best believe I'm A-ranking all the speed stages, A-ranking maybe half of the treasure hunting stages, and leaving the mech stages to rot in C-rank. Now, before wrapping this video up, I'd like to call attention to BlazeHedgehog's video on the definitive way to play SA2. It's a wonderfully comprehensive guide, and you should absolutely check it out if you're interested in some PC mods that restore the game's original feel, whilst also adding quality of life improvements, including volume controls, because apparently we weren't that advanced back in 2012. It feels kinda weird to end this video. This was easily my longest and most ambitious project yet, so I thank you for making it all the way to the end. Obligatory new Patreon plug. If it's out yet, I may not be functioning. I'm not sure. If it is, support would be just absolutely amazingly appreciated, but please never feel pressured to do so. Keep playing Sonic. Don't outgrow this charming series just because you feel like you have to. I've got more content coming your way soon enough, and subscribing would be an excellent way to keep my videos on your radar. With all that being said, this is Swack, signing off. Have a good one.